Welcome. You're watching the India Development Debate. I'm Tamanna Inamdar. The biggest story and headline of the day has been the Supreme Court concluding the hearing of all arguments in the Ram Janmabhoomi Babri Masjid title dispute. The top court is essentially hearing challenges to a 2010 decision by the Allahabad High Court that divided up the disputed area into three parts. All sides have challenged this decision. The Supreme Court has reserved its judgment, and it's widely expected that a verdict could be delivered before the 17th of November when the current Chief Justice of India, Ranjan Gogoi, retires. If there is no verdict before he retires, the whole process would have to begin again. But why is this verdict important, and why has it become the biggest story today? So it essentially comes down to a land dispute over whether a mosque or a temple was found first at this location. And it's a dispute that dates back over 134 years to 1885 when Mahant Raghubir Das filed a plea in the Faizabad District Court. The entire dispute is over land measuring just 1.12 hectares. Since 1992, an approximate 2,000 people have been killed in violence related to this core dispute that has manifested in many ways and has dragged on for years. The dispute since 1992 also has acted like a springboard for the BJP's ascent to its current electoral dominance, where it went from 2 seats in the Lok Sabha to the current 303. It's a dispute that needs to come to an end sooner than later. But is it also the most pressing matter in India today? I want to draw your attention to the fact that India is now at the rank of 102 out of 117 in the Global Hunger Index, trailing behind our neighbours like Nepal, Bangladesh and even Pakistan. Despite numerous governments, including this one, focusing its energies on ensuring eradicating hunger, wasting in children and stunting, we seem to be slipping. It is even more alarming because despite a slowdown, the IMF predicts India, with a growth of 6.1% GDP this year, will be one of the fastest growing nations in the world. Why then are we lagging here? Where are we going wrong? To speak more on this, I am starting today's show with the issue that we think is most important. I am joined now by Vinod Paul of the Niti Aayog and Ritika Khera, Associate Professor at IIM Ahmedabad. Let me begin by speaking with Ms. Khera. Why do you think we are faring so poorly on what is such an important parameter?
This measure, this Global Hunger Index, includes wasting, stunting, child mortality and also calorie intake. And clearly, we don't need the Global Hunger Index to know that there has been decades of neglect of both food and nutrition programs, but much more than that of health programs. So, things like the under 5 mortality rate, which is a part of the Global Hunger Index, is affected by women's access to health services, which are very poor. India is barely spending 1% of GDP on, the government is spending 1% of GDP on health, which is far lower even than countries in sub-Saharan Africa. So I think one key issue is that there may be a lot of lip service and a lot of advertisements about all the measures that have been taken, and this is not just this government, obviously this is decades of neglect that is reflecting in these things. One small thing is that there was some improvement between the National Family Health Surveys of 2008-9 and 2015-16 in terms of stunting and wasting, but I certainly am a little bit worried about the results between the last round and the next round, because what we have been seeing is in the past couple of years or more, there have been nearly 85 deaths due to hunger. So, this is not just a question of nutrition, even basic needs, it seems that there might be a problem.
Let me go across to Mr. Paul, who is joining us from the Niti Aayog. Mr. Paul, we're of course discussing the fact that India now ranks 102nd out of 117 on the Global Hunger Index. Where are we lagging behind? I mean, every year we're so excited about the fact that we are improving in our ranking in the ease of doing business index, as we should be. But the fact that this is now one of the fastest growing economies in the world. One really wonders why this isn't the dominant issue and the dominant headline. Where do you think we are lagging behind?
Firstly, you must appreciate that overall we are making good progress, extremely good progress, accelerated progress in health and nutrition of women and children, and health in general, and I would touch the numbers in a moment. But please note that the global hunger index in some ways misleads us, because the four indicators that it has, undernourishment in terms of food intake, and then there are two indicators of stunting. That means the children, under 5 children, are shorter for their age and wasted, they look thinner than they should look for that particular age. And then you have under 5 mortality. Now, to pick up under 5 mortality is not equal to undernourishment. It's not equal to hunger. Part of under 5 mortality is related to nutritional issues, a part. But the causes of under 5 mortality are diseases per se, diarrheal disease, pneumonia, newborn diseases, which have nothing to do with nutrition. Therefore, there is an issue about this index, and I'll come to where we stand in terms of the numbers. And similarly, you take an example of stunting or wasting.
Yeah.
Even that is not hunger. Half of stunting is about illnesses, and half of the another quarter.
Okay.
Quarter of stunting is about illnesses, and a quarter is related to fetal growth retardation, which is not nutrition. So we object to the use of hunger to put it all together. But let me say the second important point. They have used the data, which is NFHS 4 data of 2015-2016.
Okay.
That's not our most recent data. Our most recent data is the SRS data of 2017 and Comprehensive National Nutrition Survey of 2016-2018. And if I use those numbers, then our index comes to 27.4, and India moves to 91st position. So not only the index itself is flawed, fundamentally flawed, because it's not about hunger, but even if I just correctly put the numbers, that is the Rees-Mossad number, we are on 91 position and not 102 position. Okay. And that's something which must be, and there are other issues about this index, which I'm very happy to talk about.
We'll come to that. Ritika Khera is also on the panel and she wants to respond, but I wanted to give both of you all to make a fairly elaborate opening statement. The long and short of it, Vinod Paul of the Niti Aayog says that some of these statistics are misleading. Ritika, you want to respond to that?
Like I said at the beginning when I started, I don't think the Global Hunger Index is necessarily the best thing to look at. The only interesting thing is that it gives a comparative picture across countries. I think we should focus on India, and actually I'm a little bit surprised that Dr. Paul is saying that, it's not about hunger and it's got mortality. In fact, that's even worse if your mortality rates are not going down, or if your stunting and wasting is high. Those are indicators of nutrition, and you cannot really separate hunger and nutrition and health. They're all interrelated things, and that's precisely why these people bring all of them together. Anyway, I don't want to stand up for the Global Hunger Index. It's not something I rely on, but I do want to stand up for the National Family Health Survey data, which is really has been so far a very reliable source of information on health and nutrition indicators. And like I said, there was some improvement between the third and the fourth round, but now we need to wait for the next round. This other survey, I am afraid I don't want to compare a new data set with for past trends, which is not comparable. So there may have been some improvement. I'm not, there's nothing I can say without looking at the next round.
No, but even if we go to 91.
But we know the record of this government as far as data is concerned.
Yeah, no, but even if we go to 91.
No, I think that this always competing with other countries, and especially with Pakistan is really not a very fruitful exercise.
No, it doesn't,
we
it doesn't
know
matter.
That
we should be concerned.
Kerala has a very low infant mortality rate.
Yeah. No, let me come to
and
Dr.
so we
Paul.
should
Let me come
compete,
to
all
Dr.
the
Paul.
other states should be competing with Kerala and bringing the.
Yeah, let me come to Dr.
Yes,
Paul on this
yes.
point. Let me come, Dr. Paul, I just want to put this in perspective. Beyond the point 103.91, what is all of this indicative about? And I think you missed the beginning of the show, but I started by talking about the story that is dominating headlines everywhere today, which is the Ayodhya verdict and what will happen. Now, my simple point, journalistically, is to bring the focus on the issues that matter. While we get absorbed in all of this, isn't it a matter of deep dismay, if not shame for us, that with the level of progress that we as a nation have achieved, that we should still fare so poorly and so many of our children and so many of our citizens should remain hungry? That should keep us awake at night more than anything else. That's the simple point, Dr. Paul.
Okay, 2 points. The last statement is what is bothering me. It is not about being hungry. Please appreciate that these indicators are not about being hungry. Now, I agree with you and also with our colleague from IIM that indeed under 5 mortality, or for that matter under nutrition, stunting and wasting are of areas of extreme concern to us. We accept that, but look at the way the progress is happening. Under 5 mortality, we achieved a 2/3 reduction between 1990 and 2015-2016. It's a remarkable acceleration in child survival, and that must also be celebrated. Now, the stunting decline was happening at the rate of about 1 percentage point in the last 10 years, NFHS 3, NFHS 4. CNNS data shows that there is an acceleration to over 1.5%. And if you look at the state level changes, there are states which are now pushing the decline to 3%. The point that I am making is, yes, you can say this still remains both problems of child mortality and child nutrition remain very important, we agree. But there is a history to this. But in recent times, from the NHM onwards, and particularly in the last 5 to 6 years, there has been an acceleration, and we are witnessing an acceleration. We expect more acceleration to happen. But it's very important to understand that this has to happen both in terms of health interventions, which means prevention of illnesses like diarrheal disease, early treatment, use of zinc, immunization. Also remember, there is an epigenetic part to undernourishment which must be understood. Over a period of generations, though we have the genetic potential to achieve very high status in terms of nutrition, it has been quote unquote suppressed. And this is a well-known epigenetic mechanism, and it takes a while for this to change. So part of the undernourishment, undernutrition status is not plastic in the immediate. It will take a little while.
Okay.
But the changeable
the
part,
fact
we are
is,
seeing an acceleration.
Yes.
And this will be tackled. Now, I want to come to Poshan Abhiyan. One moment. I want you to please appreciate the effort that the present government under the leadership of our Honorable Prime Minister has done.
I was just coming to that.
We have Poshan Abhiyan,
yes.
which is,
Dr. Paul, if you may allow me to just finish my point,
please,
and then Ritika Khera wants to respond. You are saying these things will take time. I agree, but even you will agree, Dr. Paul, though the Modi government is making a lot of efforts, I'm not saying they're not, it's not the only government since the independence of India that has been, worried about hungry children. So there have been schemes upon schemes upon schemes. They should have started showing their impact by now. Whether it's the midday
I again would say it is not about hungry children. No, it's not about hungry children. Food security is not the fundamental problem. Food security is a minuscule problem, if at all. It is about behaviors. It is about reaching 100% breastfeeding rates. It's about timely start of food available as complementary food. It's about behaviors which have been built over a period of time. It's not food insecurity.
Okay, let Ritika Khera
That's where
respond.
my point. I differ with you absolutely and totally.
Okay, let Ritika Khera respond, and please explain to us the context of this. When Dr. Paul says food behavior and food security, what exactly are we talking about?
Okay, so to define what hunger is not very easy. If somebody is eating a mound of rice with namak, is that going to count as being not hungry, I would say that's not satisfactory in the 21st century India with the highest growth rate in the country. Okay. The other fact is that in the past 3 years, 82 people have died because of hunger related reasons. They were already deprived, and then their access was cut off, or for whatever reason they died prematurely. So hunger is also a problem in the sense of just getting enough of a mound of rice. What can we do about this? Poshan Abhiyan, I'm afraid when we did our survey in June, July this year, on the ground for ICDS workers, Poshan Abhiyan means getting a smartphone with the ICDS CAS application. Besides that, they know very little else. They only know that they have to do all their record keeping on that mobile phone now. I think that the real efforts should have been for, and this was a late realization for previous governments also, the focus should be on the first 1000 days, and Dr. Paul, I'm sure, will agree. I agree with him that breastfeeding, exclusive breastfeeding for the first 6 months is one thing, but you also need to put money. The Pradhan Mantri Matru Vandana Yojana, which comes from the Food Security Act, was supposed to give 6,000 rupees, but this government reduced it to 5,000 rupees and has restricted it to only the first child. Someone like me will get 6 months paid leave as maternity entitlement, but for the poorest of the poor, we are not even willing to give 6,000 rupees. So I would say this is one very concrete measure that the government can take immediately. The other very concrete measure, which will not cost a lot of money, is to allow the introduction of eggs in Anganwadis and midday meal program, because that is a source of nutrition which gives you everything except vitamin C. So, and many states are giving it, but many states are resisting, and this relates to your opening remarks on so-called religious grounds. I don't think actually there is a religious objection, because nobody is forcing a vegetarian to eat an egg. The real objection is that they don't want to put the money that is required into these programs. So I think the past mistake in terms of policy has been to not focus on the first 1000 days of a child's life, including the time that the child spends in the mother's womb, and that's why the Pradhan Mantri Matru Vandana Yojana is very important.
Okay.
And then to focus on the Anganwadi program and to beef up the nutrition and health services that children get there.
All right, Dr. Paul, will you respond? And you know, at the end of this, just us debating and pointing fingers is not going to help. I want you to talk about some of the suggestions that Ritika has made and what you think we can do, because I don't think we should even be satisfied with 90, 91 or any kind of ranking, or whether this ranking matters or not. At the end of the day,
no, we are not.
Hunger or nutrition,
No,
we don't want these parameters.
Pradhan Mantri Matru Vandana Yojana uptake is now 85% of the eligible women across the country. It's moving very well. It is adding on. It's not one program or one brick which is going to make a difference. It is one among several things that are being done. In the Poshan Abhiyan, the entire focus and the clearest focus once and for all is on 1000 days. It's about preventing the occurrence of undernourishment beyond infancy, and the entire focus is on women's nutrition, even more so in the first 6 months, exclusive breastfeeding, focus on small babies who fail on breastfeeding. Currently only 50% babies receive breastfeeding exclusive for 6 months. This has to become 100%, and therefore it is a behavior issue. It is not a hunger issue. It's not a food supply issue. Now likewise, between 6 months to 24 months, semi-solid food has to be started, the food that's available at home. We don't have to bring in a new food, and take-home rations are a norm for such a long period of time in our ICDS system. It is just partly because we do not start. The proportion of families which start semi-solid feed at the age of 6 months is only 43-42%. 3-meal frequency occurs only in 1/3 of the families. That's why I'm saying behavior issue. Food is available in the home. It is the same cereal, same dal, same dahi, same aloo, same milk to be used. Behavior change is the issue, and that's what the focus of the Poshan Abhiyan this time is, apart from using technology for compliance and so on. And I can assure you that these things are changing. In the Poshan Maha that we had in September, as many as 3 crore people and more were involved in one way or the other in receiving the messages and raising awareness. So it's it's a change. It's going to work when we deal with it as a Jan Andolan, which is leading to change in behavior. And also remember, as part of Poshan Abhiyan, to prevent diarrheal disease, that changes the reduction, the nutritional status toward being bad and also causes mortality. We now have a universal rotavirus vaccine.
Okay.
We have Swachh Abhiyan, which has made the country ODF. We believe all these measures. Please remember, it's not food alone. Food is an issue of behavior. Food is not a security issue by and large. There can be extreme situations and we need to address them. We accept that part. But food is essential behavior change. Why breastfeeding rates are 50%? It's a behavior and we need to change the behavior. Why food adequacy between 6 months to 24 months is around 10%?
Okay.
The food is available, but we are shy of giving. And also remember, our food diversity is increasing. In recent times, the cereal intake is moving, but there's an increased intake of products like lentils, milk products, fish, meat, eggs. And this is the way it is moving. So please look at it holistically. And the hunger is an extreme situation. That's not the issue at the heart of it. Our progress will require a comprehensive response at the grassroots level for nutrition and health as an integrated endeavor. Focus on the first 1,000 days, and that's the philosophy with which we are working.
Okay, just a quick response from Ritika Khera. To some of the points that have been raised, and these are important highlights because sometimes we just look at the headline and we see hunger index 103 behind XYZ country, what is happening in India, but some of these nuances that Dr. Paul is bringing in about behavioral change, is that what we need to focus on, Ritika?
I think behavioral change, I would actually call it nutrition education, and that language matters because when you say behavioral change, you're putting the onus on people, and when you say nutrition education, you're owning up to the state responsibility to do this. And I think this is where this government is failing very badly. Let me give you one example about this Poshan Abhiyan. I'm in Gujarat and there was a headline with Chief Minister Rupani when this Poshan Abhiyan control center was launched, and the headline was that he called up 2 or 3 Anganwadi workers and they didn't answer the phone, and then he was really angry. Now suppose I am in class, would you want me to answer the phone from anyone, from my family or from the government? You wouldn't. You would want me to concentrate on the work that I am doing. I don't know why these Anganwadi workers' phones were switched off. Maybe they were working, maybe they had just switched it off, maybe it was out of charge. But this is the focus. The focus is on surveilling and monitoring rather than creating an enabling environment, giving them proper salaries in order to be able to do their work. They are the most important frontline workers to make a difference in the first 1,000 days. They register women's pregnancies, they provide nutrition counseling.
I'm out of time.
But you cannot pay them 1,000 or 2,000 rupees and expect them to do all
this. I think that's a fair point. I'm out of time, but I will give you a quick response, Dr. Paul. I'll give you a quick response, Dr. Paul, even though I'm out of time, because I think this is important, and it's important to take it beyond a political sort of rhetoric. No one wants this to happen, no matter in which government. That I think we can all agree on. Very quick response, Dr. Paul. You agree that there are leaps and bounds to go. We need to work towards a solution.
Look, I'm also a pediatrician. Please appreciate Anganwadi workers, cash incentives, take-home ration. All this is basically for the purpose of the right behaviors in the home and the household setting. If we don't start semi-solid foods available at home or take-home ration, the change will not happen. The society has to also come together and make, a norm that at 6 months semi-solid food is started. And remember, 1-year-old child's nutrition is 50% of what you and I eat. How many of us appreciate, even in the Vela family, this is not an appreciated issue. It's a behavior change at the heart of making a difference. All of us are making efforts to make that happen. Food is made available so that it can be used. Anganwadi workers are there to facilitate that. Technology is to facilitate that. And also remember, the other part is health, prevention of infection, immunization programs, so that children, even those children who are normal to begin with, will become undernourished or may die. Therefore, health interventions. particularly for preventing and treating diarrhea with
Yeah.
ORS and zinc.
I
Zinc
wanna
uptake
come
is
back-
40%.
Absolutely.
It should
I
be
want to come back to this
near
specific
90%.
index, which is specifically a hunger index. We must, you know, the efficacy of it can be debated, but we must look at improving our ranking here as well. At the end of the day, we need to focus on the issues that really matter. I think intentions.
This
of-
is a misleading terminology, and it's not hunger.
Okay. Okay, you've made that
The
argument through the
indicators are
debate,
not
and I'm
about
out of
hunger.
time. You made the argument through the debate,
Indicators
and I'm
are
out of time.
Complex
That's-
issues.
Yes, yes,
Yes.
that's what the index is called. But this is the big issue that we must focus on when we talk about the development of this country. Thank you so much
Yes,
to
we
the
should.
both of you for joining us today.